Lenskart wants to build a mega factory in Bengaluru, and Piyush Bansal has taken to LinkedIn to find land for this project. Now, we don't have details about this mega factory just yet, but based on Piyush's LinkedIn post, we can make a few assumptions. First of all, this mega factory is expected to be spread out over 25 acres of land, and he wants to build it within 60 kilometers of Bengaluru Airport. And if that's the case, then it's going to be more than twice the size of Lenskart's largest manufacturing facility, which is currently in Bhiwadi in Rajasthan. So this is a highly ambitious project for Lenskart, and they're by far India's largest eyewear retailer, making 3,780 crore rupees in revenue in FY23. But that's not all. Back in 2022, Lenskart acquired a majority stake in Japanese D2C eyewear brand Owndays, making them Asia's largest eyewear business too. And this really is a global company at this point. They have 2,000 stores, and 25% of these stores are outside of India. And of course, going international means more demand for Lenskart, and that's probably the reason why Lenskart is spending heavily to ramp up its manufacturing. And on top of that, there are reports that Lenskart is looking to go public as well. Back in 2022, Piyush Bansal had said that Lenskart will most likely do an IPO in the next 24 to 36 months. And considering the fact that the company is profitable and the positive sentiment right now towards profitable Indian startups in the public markets, it makes sense that Lenskart would start preparing for this IPO. Building India's largest eyewear factory makes perfect sense both from an IPO perspective and also a business perspective. And as it turns out, one Karnataka minister has already replied to Piyush Bansal on X, and the process for acquiring the land in Bengaluru might already be in motion at this point. And I want to stay on the topic of Bengaluru for a second here, because even though it is considered India's Silicon Valley, let's not forget the fact that the city is currently going through one of the worst water crises in its 500-year history. And while I was scrolling through X, I actually discovered this startup that might actually be able to solve this problem once and for all. Now, in all fairness, Nitin Kamat was the one that actually discovered these guys in the first place, but after he posted about them, they received a lot of recognition. And what they're doing is incredible, and I want to highlight them in our Startup of the Week segment right here. So the startup that I'm talking about here is Boson White Water. So I don't know if you guys remember this video of Bill Gates drinking water that was converted from human waste, but that's pretty much what Boson White Water is doing. Now, we do have sewage treatment plants, STPs, which are capable enough to purify this water, but this STP purified water is only good for things like washing clothes, gardening, and flushing. And on top of that, 80% of this waste just stays waste. It's literally wasted, it's discarded.
We realized that only 20% of STP treated water is used for gardening and flushing. Remaining 80% of the water goes to waste.
So Boson White Water has created an 11-step filtration process that can convert this sewage water into water that we can drink. And as of today, they're already turning more than 8 lakh liters of sewage water into drinking water every single day. But the biggest problem that Vikas Brahmavar, one of the founders of Boson White Water, faced was that people just weren't comfortable drinking this water, even though it's totally safe and sanitary to drink. So I'm curious to know, would you actually be comfortable drinking this water? And will this company be able to scale their business across the entire country? What do you think? Leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. All right, next up, we here at Backstage with Millionaires know very well that scaling a business is extremely difficult. And when you're a small business, there might just be one person looking after everything from sales to marketing, and the process might be extremely chaotic. And as you grow, you'll really have no choice but to set up processes and automate things so that you can scale. And if you're a technical person, then really you could end up doing this all yourself. You could build tools in-house for your CRM needs, but this will probably end up taking a lot of time that you could have spent increasing your revenue instead. And this is where a platform like Bittrex24 comes into the picture. They've already created more than 35 tools for every use case you could possibly need. Want something to manage your projects? They've got you covered. Or you want a tool to automate your sales and marketing? They've got you covered there too. And that's the reason why more than 10 million companies around the world are already using Bittrex24 for their business needs. And the best part is they actually offer a free forever plan to get you started. And when I say free forever, I really mean it. In fact, they don't even have a limit on the number of users on their free plan. But if you have a more advanced use case, you can also pick from their paid plans as well. And if this is something that you're interested in, then you can find a link to their website in the description and also in the pinned comment down below. All right, next up in the news, Ather held their Community Day event on the 6th of April, and they announced a bunch of new products, but the biggest launch that everybody was waiting for was Ather's family scooter, the Rizta. So the Rizta is Ather's response to some of the problems that people have been facing with their other scooters. Here's a comment from one of our viewers about Ather's electric scooters. And this person wasn't the only one facing this issue of Ather scooters not having enough space. In fact, that's one of the biggest reasons why the company launched Rizta. And here's Tarun Mehta talking about how much space Rizta has.
Sitting on the Rizta is going to be amazing because you obviously got a lot of leg room, but also because the seat is large enough and flat enough that you can slide comfortably back and sit very, very, very comfortably.
Now, this space isn't just for people sitting on top of the scooter, it's also space for things to go underneath in the trunk. Then, in terms of utility, you can actually charge all of your devices with Ather's multi-purpose charger on the go, and actually you can also charge Ather's Bluetooth helmet as well inside of the trunk itself. But then what about performance? Well, Ather's Rizta comes in two variants, the Rizta S and the Rizta Z. The first one is their standard electric scooter, which gives you an IDC range of 123 kilometers per charge, while the Rizta Z comes with two battery options, giving you a range of 160 kilometers and 123 kilometers respectively. Each of these has a top speed of 80 kilometers per hour, and as for the price, the Rizta S is priced at 1.1 lakh rupees, while the Rizta Z, which comes with two battery options, like I said, is priced at 1.25 lakh rupees for the smaller battery and 1.45 lakh rupees for the bigger battery. These electric scooters are available for pre-booking right now, and the company expects to start delivering them as soon as the 24th of July. All right, next up in the news, Ola has decided to shut down their international ride-hailing business in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand by the end of April. But why did they decide to do this? Well, a spokesperson for the company said the future of mobility is electric, not just in personal mobility, but also for ride-hailing business too. So it looks like they really want to take advantage of this opportunity and focus on expanding in India with an emphasis on EV. In fact, Ola has already acquired 8,000 electric scooters from Ola Electric to start a bike taxi service. And then also with Ola Electric, sometime in the near future planning to launch their own electric car, I wouldn't be surprised if they start selling some of these cars, or at least handing them over to Ola, the ride-hailing business, helping them transition their ride-hailing business to electric. And this could be a huge opportunity for both Ola and Ola Electric, and it makes a lot of sense from a business standpoint too. All right, next up in the news, and continuing to talk about business opportunities here, Ola and Uber have been criticized by their drivers for charging high commissions in the past, but it looks like these companies have decided not to charge any commission from their auto drivers any longer. Instead of charging a commission for every ride from drivers, they're now going to be charging a fixed fee, a daily or a weekly fee from their driver partners. And this is great news for drivers, as it's going to translate to increased earnings for them, but it also means that Ola and Uber are not going to be offering online payment options, and you won't be able to set fares for these rides. And this is something that I've experienced. Personally, you have to agree on the price in advance. There is a suggested price on the app, but ultimately it's really up to you and the auto wallet to decide how much this ride is going to cost. So why would they decide to make such a decision? Well, it's definitely not out of the goodness of their own hearts. They're doing this to stay competitive. See, Ather started their zero commission model back in September of 2023 after seeing that drivers weren't happy with Ola and Uber's high commissions, and today they have more than 3 lakh drivers and have seen amazing growth, completing 3.4 crore trips through their platform in just 2 years. On top of that, Ather doesn't have to pay an additional 5% GST, which is paid by both Ola and Uber. Even Rapido adopted this model earlier this year for their auto drivers, and so Ola and Uber were afraid that they would take the auto drivers and their business with them, leaving them with nothing. So it looks like they probably just had no choice but to lower their prices and also make sure their drivers didn't leave them and go onto other competitors' platforms who are offering them better earning opportunities. Now, the reason Uber and Ola had to pay that additional 5% GST was because they were collecting the money from their customers and then passing it on to their driver partners after taking their cut, and they were offering them payment services. But now, since they won't be doing that anymore, they might be able to benefit from 5% lower GST like Ather. All right, next up in the news, according to this ARC report, Swiggy might opt for a confidential IPO filing. What does that mean? Well, companies have to file a DRHP, a draft red herring prospectus, with SEBI to get approval before they can go ahead with an IPO. Now, the problem with this DRHP is that it's publicly available, and people like you and me can access it, read it, and then make assessments about the health and future of these companies. And this means that for a company like Swiggy, which is often compared to Zomato, their financials will actually become public whether or not they get approval from SEBI. And that might stain their image if their financials don't match up to their competitors, even before they've had time to come up with a plan to market their IPO the way that they want to. But with a confidential IPO filing, their finances will remain confidential until they get approval from SEBI. In fact, Oyo has already opted for this route when they applied for their IPO last year. All right, now let's move into the funding news segment of today's video. This week, Indian startups raised just $29.3 million, which is not just significantly lower than last week's $155.8 $2.4 million. But also, this is the first week in the last 10 weeks when the funding has dropped lower than $100 million. Now, looking at some of the companies that have raised funds this week, we have, first of all, Mumbai-based AI startup NASA, which offers a low-code platform allowing companies to build, train, and deploy their own AI models, and they raised $20 million. After that, we have Bengaluru-based digital lending platform Axio, which has raised $6 million in debt. And then we have Gurugram-based online eyewear retailer iMyEye, which has raised $2.5 million. After that, we have Bengaluru-based online pharmacy startup Platinum RX. They raised $800,000 in their seed round. And then finally, we have Thane-based electric tractor maker AutoNext Automation, which has raised an undisclosed amount of funds in their pre-series A round. Now, before I let you guys go, check out the link in the top right corner of your screen. It's the video that we just made about the top 10 Indian AI startups of 2024. I think you'll really enjoy it and learn a lot about some of the companies that are building in the AI space in India right now. But either way, thank you so much for watching this episode of Backstage with Millionaires, and I'll catch you in the next one.